Hello, I'm Chris Boustedt,
I'm Lindy Boustedt.
and we acted as consulting producer and editor on Revelation, which we've been making movies together for a lot of years, and this is actually a complete reversal of what our roles usually are. Lindy's usually the producer, and I am usually the editor. So we thought we'd just ask each other a few questions about our experiences on this project.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just jump right in. Since you don't typically edit things, but obviously you watch me edit, you watch editors who hire work, like, did you bring anything from past experiences into this, or did you just start from scratch? Like, what was new about the challenge of being an editor instead of a producer or director?
Well, you know, what interests me about coming onto this project was because I had never been the lead editor on any of our projects, and I thought that was because each of these ladies, you know, in Revelation were kind of pushing themselves and doing something new in their acting and kind of going to those scary places. I thought it was only fitting if all people in every single part of it kind of push themselves and go to new places. And so I thought of it as an opportunity to be participatory in that process. And so it was scary because I didn't have that safety net. I didn't, you know, I'm really comfortable being a producer. A little less, I mean, directing is always still scary to me, but I'm more comfortable in directing. So this is like something that was really scary, and that excited me to do that. And it was kind of, too, a project that I was really able to be creative and free with, whereas my brain works in such a logistical and kind of black and white way. This was a project that was really lyrical and poetic, and so I felt that was would be a really good stretch for me to kind of get out of that and just really come at a project emotionally, purely emotionally, and see where that went.
Yeah. So was there anything that was unexpected about being the editor? And I mean, you know, unexpectedly fun, unexpectedly challenging, rewarding. Yeah.
It was really interesting that some of the vignettes came really quickly to me, like how they were going to form, and some were really hard.
What made the difficult ones difficult?
I just couldn't figure out. It just felt like every way that I thought to edit it was just kind of blah. Was just kind of too. Yeah, that's the way you'd edit it, you know? Like, I was just, like, sure, that's the easiest way to go about it. And so it just, nothing, ingenuity-wise was...
You're, like, lacking, like, an inspiration for
something new, or something, really creative. And so I was just kind of at a... And so I kept, like, pushing it off and be like, well, I'm just going to do that one later. Two, I was surprised that... because I normally, music dictates a lot of my editing when I do edit things, and I was surprised that it was actually okay, that I was really just going on what the music of the piece, and I didn't have something to drive what my edits were. Yeah. And that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. What ended up becoming inspiration for you, or how did you find that muse to push forward and find the expression in the ones that you originally were struggling with?
I think just really trying to really tackle what the emotion of the piece was, and then figure out the best way to convey that. Like, really going to, what do I see is, you know, what is calling out to me is the driving emotion of the piece, and then really focusing, okay, now how do I best tell that.
So same idea, like when screenwriting, you know, it's like I've noticed that whenever we struggle with a scene, it's usually when we go back to basics and we're like, oh, who's the main character? What do they want? What's the driving conflict? What's the tension? Like, that's when we're like, oh, right, that's how we write.
And then it comes to you, and then it feels like, oh yeah, of course, that's the exact logical way it should be done. So and two, it really did help. I did have music. I would just turn on Pandora, and basically it was like music you listen to when you have a yoga or acupuncture or massage. It was just kind of nature Enya type music, and that that really did help it, because if I watched these pieces without music, I ended up cutting them really fast. Because I felt like everything was too long. And it wasn't until I would listen to music that I would find the right pace.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like music can definitely, I mean, I've done it in writing, I've done it in editing. It can, I don't know, it can unlock part of the brain a little bit. And, yeah, let you think about something in a different way, or experience it in a different way, is perhaps so of course, editing, the beauty of editing to me, one of the things is that it's completely left brain and completely right brain. Like, it's 100% both. And there's no way to separate that sort of, you've got to be an artist and a technician. So we've talked about the artistic aspect of it, but like, how was it dealing with, I forget how many hours of footage there was, but there's a lot of footage for this project, and ultimately cut down to...
Yes, Ty likes to shoot lots of footage.
Well, and it was two cameras that were both running slightly different, because it was a red...
and a lot of slow motion cameras, so that just
doubles your... Yeah, exactly, or more in some cases. But yeah, I mean, we're dealing with two different cameras, shooting with different frame rates. I mean, there's a whole like gamut of weird technical things that we had to wrestle with. Like, was there anything illuminating or just downright ugly about that process for you?
Well, for me, because I'm not, I don't edit nearly as much as you do, I'm not as skilled with all the tricks of the program. So I found what was freeing was first I was like, well, I'm not doing anything fancy, super fancy. And it kind of just brought it down to the simple, and so it's like, okay, well, what's the simplest way for me to convey this? And how do I do that with just, basic time, speed shifts, or, different kind of rapid cutting and that sort of thing. So just kind of brought it down to a very simplistic nature, which I thought was really good, because then I'm just really having the emotion drive it rather than fancy tricks.
Absolutely.
So that was kind of like, well, I'm going to use what I know, and those are going to be that's the toolbox that I get. And so it's kind of like indie filmmaking. It's like, well, I don't have enough money for this, or I don't have enough resources for this, and so it's very much what I do in producing. It's like, well, how do I make such and such happen with the limited resources that I have? And so it was kind of freeing in that way to be like, well, I only have these tricks, so what can I do with that?
Did you find your toolbox expanding at all as you went through the process?
Not really. I kind of stuck to what I know. I mean, you and I had a couple conversations where I was like, I have no idea how to do this. And so you would kind of, give me, and I would take that and be like, okay, well, how can I do that? I think the most complicated was the split screen, and once I once I figured out that, and that was like the most complicated, but
how did you, when you're going through all of the footage, were you applying some sort of rubric to like how you were going to pick shots? Like, what was your workflow like? You're looking in the browser, you've got all that raw footage. How did you choose which bits to use?
Well, I watched all of it. Sometimes I watched it in fast motion because it was slow motion, which gave me ideas for seeing things or doing. I liked the way that it looked in kind of a jolted, fast pace. But basically, I just kind of started going through kind of in order of the story, however I saw the story, because I wasn't on set, and I didn't talk to any of the actresses about their story.
Yeah, I think like you were on set for maybe 5 minutes total. You walked in, you saw the studio. I think Mad World was playing in the background, and I think you turned to me and you were like, I can't do this, and like ran away.
Well, because to hear the actress's musical inspiration, I felt was going to really make me know too much, and I, especially that song is so powerful to me. I didn't want to put any of my emotion into the piece, and so I didn't want to know anything about it. I wanted to come at it. So I kind of tried to see what the story was, and then I tried, in how I saw the story, I went through sequentially, and then just started picking shots that spoke to me. And then once I had that, then I started assembling an edit. The only time I'd ever go back is if, Wonder was like, I think I remember there being such and such, or I think, I would want to change this shot. And then I would go back and find different things. But I really just tried to go straight by my gut and just go through and pick the shots that spoke to me, and then put those together. Were there
any where you cut it one way and then you looked at it, or even potentially you had Wonder look at it or whomever, and then completely change the way that you approached it?
I believe we did that once, and that was just I believe it was Bridget's, that
Oh, yes, it was.
yeah, that I had cut it with a certain something different that I was trying to do, and it didn't really speak. And so then it was like, okay, well, why didn't it speak, or do we really want to follow that that emotion, and then how do we change that? So we did change a lot of that one.
Yeah.
The other, I think there was a couple that had that.
Well, and that's one of those where I think the narrative as it was originally played out is different from how it is now.
Absolutely.
In the piece.
Yeah.
It was just a linear, you know.
But I think we because I came at it not knowing,
Right,
I think it then helped the whole 6 together, because then it kind of turned this one vignette into kind of a close in a way we never thought before.
Yeah.